Okay, here we see today a 2016 Hyundai Elantra. This is a nice little car. We have a gasoline direct injected 4-cylinder engine. Runs nice and smooth, very strong. The automatic transmission on this is actually of a Hyundai Kia design. It's called the A6MF. It's a 6-speed automatic transmission. It's actually patterned after the Toyota U660E. One of the problems with it, it was actually low on transmission fluid. Now, one of the things you say, well, why is it low on transmission fluid? Well, first of all, I do not have any way to check the fluid easily on this transmission. I do not have a dipstick. Instead, what happens is down underneath, I have a drain plug, and then I have a level check port and fill port that there is on the side of the plastic valve body cover, which is actually towards the front of the transmission, not underneath. Now, there is a plastic shield that we removed to gain access to it, and on the lift, when we removed the check plug, there was absolutely nothing in it. And as we insert a small pocket screwdriver to try and give a level check, we weren't even getting a level indication. So the first thing we did was drop the drain plug, and we didn't even get a quart of fluid out of it. Now, how did it behave? Well, what happens is that it would intermittently set a ratio code for the automatic transmission, indicating it was slipping in 6 or the converter clutch was slipping, and also it would flare when going around a corner. And that's often a case, you know, hey, I'm low on fluid. Otherwise, it seemed to behave itself, and there, quick visit to our shop. We put it up in the air, remove the dust shield, remove the check plug, which is just simply plastic. Be very careful with it. You only turn it about a quarter of a turn, and it is removed. Dry as a bone, went ahead and drained the remaining fluid with the drain plug, which is underneath the transmission there in the aluminum case. And then with the drain plug back, we carefully and generously filled it back up. Now, hey, you want the proper level of transmission fluid in it, but if I'm going to have a slow leak, I'd like to have maybe a quart or two in reserve. Now, what happens is if the transmission fluid is excessively high, well, the gear train can kind of churn it. But hey, too much fluid is better than not enough, especially with an automatic transmission. But hey, this should be good. We don't see any obvious leak, but after 124,000 miles, and that's what we have on this vehicle, hey, a drop every month or so. It doesn't take long before we're going to be low on fluid. This is going to make someone a very nice car. It runs very smooth. It runs strong. Tires are nicely balanced. Air conditioner blows nice and cold. Basically, the glass in the interior are pretty good shape. All right, let's take a look at our engine compartment. Now, Hyundai does have this diagnostic connector here, which is kind of a feature that they could use at the dealership or on the assembly line. However, I do have my OBD2 connector up under the dash for plugging my scan tool in. Here we see the washer reservoir. One thing that I'm noticing about this, I certainly have access there to the work on the headlight, at least on the right side. Looks a whole lot tighter on the left. Here on the design of our engine mount, here we see the large engine mount, and here we see the rubber vibration isolator. They're bolting solidly to the strut tower. Come across, there we see our alternator. The belt looks pretty fresh. There we see the high pressure switch for the air conditioning system. Now on this particular model, you'll notice that the liquid, high pressure liquid from the air conditioning system enters the heat exchanger section going along the low pressure line. And what the idea is I want to try to subcool my high pressure liquid with the returning low pressure vapor liquid mixture going to the suction side of the compressor. And this is going to buy me a little bit of efficiency and certainly something relatively easy to do. And as we come across, there we see our high side line clearly marked, and I take it that that's what they're trying to tell me there. And then the low side line, as far as its test board is concerned, is hiding right here just before my H block, which has my integral expansion valve built into it. And as we come across here, we see the anti-lock brake, valve body, electronic control module, and hydraulic pump motor, all contained in one unit, which is very popular here. Now, as I look at the engine, it looks fairly clean up here in the front. It runs smooth. We do notice that there is some oil there towards the bottom, but not an excessive amount. As we come across, I see my coolant reservoir that seems to have a sufficient amount of coolant in it. And here we see our throttle body and our electronic throttle actuator. Seems like we have a brand new interstate battery that's just been installed. And here we see the powertrain control module. They're mounted right there behind the battery. It seems like on a lot of the late model vehicles, instead of using a mass airflow sensor to directly measure the mass of air entering the intake manifold, they like an indirect method. And one method is called the speed density method, where they're measuring, of course, the frequency with which an intake valve opens, that is engine speed, and the density of the air in the intake manifold. And here we see the manifold absolute pressure sensor. Now you'll notice that this one combines both the manifold absolute pressure and manifold air temperature into one sensor. So with the combination of pressure and temperature, I can measure intake manifold air density, and with the information as far as engine speed is concerned, a frequency with which an intake valve opens, I can estimate mass airflow rate and proportion the correct quantity of fuel.